Ta-da! It's a Marauder. So it's shaky cam, because I haven't done this in like 5 years. So it's just on wood blocks right now. I haven't done motor mounts or, excuse me, body mounts yet. I have it's a 2000 F-150 chassis, the 5.4 automatic, 4-wheel drive, all the bits. It was rolled truck, so I don't feel that bad cutting it up. It wasn't going to do anything except go to scrap, but the car, on the other hand, was out of a field. So as nice as certain parts of it are, the rest of it is trash. So I don't feel bad cutting that up either. Had to clearance the floors just a tick to get it to sit kind of right. Let's go back here. So it sits kind of high in the back. I don't know if I actually care. I might kind of care, but all that clearancing out of the floor is to make it sit lower in the back anyways, so I kind of think that's probably just where it's going to sit. The front can come up a little bit if I want it to, but I don't want to have just giant body mounts, like giant body lift everywhere. 'Cause, you know, then it just looks like you don't know what you're doing and you didn't try very hard. But honestly, didn't try very hard. I did. It was me and a couple of guys in the neighborhood. Put some cinder blocks out and a couple of big, like, pressure treated 4x4s, and just used the cherry picker over there and just took the front up a little bit, put it on blocks, took the back up a little bit, put it on blocks, over and over and over until you roll the chassis out. The chassis is in my backyard now because my wife is ultra tolerant. So it's, you know, chest high, I guess. Not huge, but it is pretty huge. The first time my wife came out and saw it, she just yelled. She just laughed. Ha ha ha. How are we ever going to get in it? And I'm like, well, that's a great question. So, nothing crazy. Well, that's kind of a dumb thing to say. It's a little nutty, but I think it'll be cool. The hood fits everything, clears. The firewall to back of the engine is pretty tight, to try and get the wheel spacing, like the actual wheelbase of it, a little bit better. The truck was too long in the first place, and so I had to cut, let's tap it that way so you can actually see it. I had to cut 18 inches out of the back of the frame and just slide the back of the frame back forward. So the wheelbase now is pretty close to what it was factory from the car. But the problem is, once you put a lift kit and like 35s on anything, it doesn't actually, like, it doesn't line up that great. If I could bring the whole thing 4 inches further, I would do it. But I don't want to have to either have it touching the back of the engine on the firewall, because then it sucks to work on, and I'm going to inevitably be working on this. Or I definitely didn't want to cut the firewall out, because the whole point of this is to try and keep it, like, I don't know, as cool and easy as I can do it, which is try not to really cut up a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just going to tell it it's an F-150. I didn't mess with the evap stuff. I didn't take out the wideband or the O2s or the cats, any of that really, because I didn't want to mess with it and make it run like crap and have check engine light, all that junk. So I'm kind of trying to just make it be an F-150, but, you know, cooler looking. So the section I cut out, see if I can find a flashlight. Hang on. Bloop. Look at the car for a minute. The section that I cut out is going to be good for scrap steel, but that's about it. It's a really herky frame actually on this thing. It's 4 inches in the front and it tapers to 6 and then tapers back up to 4 inches. And so the section where I cut it is like 6 or so inches thick. So what I did was cut right along the body line here, or excuse me, the rib line on the frame at the top and the bottom, out to about here. And then I knocked the rest of the frame here, so it was like a tab and slot kind of a thing, and set it back together, welded it back up. It lined up really nice. It wasn't very hard at all. And then this is like a fish plate, so just some 3/16 I had laying around. Took it and heated it up and bashed it pretty much into shape, and then it's just big fat welds everywhere. I figure if it's gonna break somewhere, it's probably not gonna break there. The body mounts that I haven't done yet, I knocked off all the factory F-150 mounts with my plasma because I didn't think they would fit. And the more I look at it, shaky cam, they wouldn't have fit, but I could have used them to, they would have been like right here. I could have used them to just gusset something up to the car mount. So I cut them all off and put them in a box over there. And I think I'll probably just find something that's kind of closer. I have some random square tube laying around, that kind of stuff. But the fender well, I had to knock a bunch out of the fender well to get it to even remotely fit the brake master cylinder. But it has all the ABS, all the computer junk. It's going to be ugly, but I can kind of hide it as much as I care to. But again, I'm just trying to make it, I don't know, still think it's a truck. So all factory F-150 bits, and all the stuff from the Marauder was pretty trashed anyways, so it's just gonna keep going in the trash. The body is really pretty good considering. Lived in a field forever. But that, in a nutshell, is what I did this weekend. So I'm gonna have to lop off the frame rails in the front still. I want to make sure that I know where the body's gonna go onto the chassis before I do that, because wherever I put the chassis in relation to the body, like this gap right here, that's going to dictate where the front clip lives and how much of this I can actually cut off. It should just fit, like the factory bumper, all that stuff will fit. Factory bumper comes out to like right here. It's this big giant chrome 90-pound thing. So that's actually going to be pretty cool. And then the back, if we can see it, I had to pull the small block out of that other frame after I rolled it out so that I can put that engine in my Ratrod, because the one that's in the Ratrod doesn't like to hot start because the pistons are the wrong size. So I'm going to try and remedy that situation by just putting this 302 in it, and it's got another automatic. I have an overdrive trans that came with that engine back here somewhere. Yeah, and I think I'll probably just put that back together and stuff it in my Ratrod one of these days, and then start dealing with that. But mostly I just need this thing. I need the body connected to the chassis so that I can make it stop, turn, and start. And that's basically it. Once I can drive it in and out of the garage, drive it up and down the street with my wife waving at all the neighbors, pointing and laughing, then it will probably be good enough for what I'm doing. I'll just peck away at it for however long it takes to make it cool. Anyways, the back, the kick up on that frickin' car, dude, was bananas. I don't know if that shows you anything at all, because I can't see what you're looking at. Yeah, the kick up in the back of the frame on the car was like 8 or 10 inches taller than the kick up on the truck chassis. So that was a problem that I did not count on having. The whole floor was rotten out of the trunk. All the rest of it's pretty good, like the fender wells and stuff. They're not bad, but the trunk and then the floor pans in the back were just destroyed. So I think what I'm gonna do, since that's probably where it's gonna sit, the body might sit like a little bit lower. But my plan was to take this, the factory tow package, whatever, and I can either unbolt it at the top here and flip it, or just lop it off and put it somewhere in the back here to kind of bring it up, and have the factory rear bumper too. That's pretty cool. And I'll have to build big like 10-inch, 20 or 10-inch or 18-inch outriggers to get the bumper where it's supposed to sit in relation to the body. Because now that I cut all that out of the frame, this frame is actually shorter than the car frame. Like, it's the right length in the right places, but all of this back here, I'm gonna have to connect to the very back of the trunk and build like a little situation back there. But overall, I'm gonna make the factory F-150 tank work. Still has all the same fuel injection, whatever stuff. And I don't know. In my head, it should just work. So far, everything has worked kind of the way I'd hoped it would, which is a momentous occasion, I guess. Oh yeah, for scale, it is this tall, and I'm 6 foot whatever. The trunk is giant, so you can kind of see that all the floor pan here was just absolutely destroyed. I'm going to take it and throw it in the scrap. When I scrap the other truck chassis, or the truck body that I stole this chassis from, trying to scrap that out and get it out of my yard. My wife is getting kind of over it, I think. But that will kind of give you an indication of how much I actually have to add to the back of the frame to get the body to touch back here. Because right now, there's nothing holding it up except for in the front, you get these guys right here. Because I have no body mounts on anything yet. Me and those other guys just kind of bashed it out pretty hard yesterday. And then today I just cut until it set better. I was not thrilled with how high it sat in the back. It was just giant. Like, it's already big and dumb, but I didn't want it to look like a frickin' cartoon. Maybe I'll put you on the cherry picker. That looks close. Yeah, that'll do. So, all the door stuff all works. The window, I have an actual windshield. I paid real money for it, and it showed up broken. And so I called and cried until they sent me another one. So I have good glass for it. It has all the door glass, all of this stuff. The back glass is actually super cool on this. I don't know if it'll actually work. I rolled it down like 3 years ago. But it goes up and then like kicks out and slides down like if it's on an arc. And so you have this giant super cool window opening for when you're sitting in your luxurious bench seat. Thinks about how you don't have air conditioning. But I saved the F-150 air conditioning, all that stuff. I think I can probably just make it work. And if I can't, then it doesn't get air conditioning, I guess. It's one less thing to break, I think. I have this other guy over here. That small block I told you is going to go into my Ratrod. And then I'll pull the 289 out of that. I just didn't want to be stuck in like machine shop jail. Take it to a guy and say, oh, can you put it 10 thou over? And then he calls you and says, yeah, you owe me $1,000 and none of your stuff fits now. Like, I don't have the patience for that. So I'll just keep finding crappy engines and blowing them up, I guess. But this stuff over here, bloop, this is obviously that small block, but this, ta-da, I'm using this like a laser pointer, is like a medium block, big block Ford. So it's a 400-inch, 400 modified is what it's called. So it has Cleveland heads, and some guy had it in his like 70, 72, 73, whatever, F-150, and he said it ran, it just leaked everywhere. And so he got another engine, pulled this one out, and just let it sit outside for a while. And then I came to save it. I gave him essentially no money for all this junk, because that's how I don't know why we are the way that we are, but that's how we are. So I came back and immediately pulled all this rusty pile of junk out of the back of my truck and hit certain sections with like some Scotch-Brite, a little bit of Scotch-Brite and WD-40, and it cleaned right up. So I think the cam and the crank polished right back up. The pistons, none of them look gouged. It didn't look like it was smacking anything because these engines have ultra low compression. They were like 7.8 to 1 from the factory. So the block, where's that light? On the floor. Okay, so the block has a little surface rust inside here. I'm just gonna go get a dingle ball hone, whatever, rent one if I can. Trying to do this on like $0. And dude, it had an automatic trans. It's a C6, a 3-speed. But if I can do it for essentially the price of the gaskets and make it at least run, I can probably run it on a stand. But I have another crappy old truck that's kind of hidden right now, sitting over on my trailer at the storage lot, that I think I'm going to try and put that into real quick. I don't know why or what I would do with it, but I already have the stuff, so I guess I'll try and use it. Which sucks because just the intake manifold for this, like I could probably just sell that for 200 bucks, throw the rest of this in the scrap and be up $100, but for some reason my brain won't let me. So instead, the whole back corner of my shop is just full of, well, engines. This Jones, though, I've been talking about it and thinking about it since Josh and I went to the Gambler that first time. And so I'm actually super excited to have it this far. Like it just looks cool. That's basically all it's good for right now. But everybody that sees it, like the neighbors that were here, their wives came over and we're just talking about kids and babies and whatever. And then they started looking at what was going on in here and they all just like stopped. And they're like, what? Is that a car or a truck or what is that? Where did this come from? And I was like, I've been hiding it in the shop this whole time. Ha ha ha. The HOA lady was down the street driving past all slow, like, what are you doing? But that's as far as that is right now. The thing you're seeing behind it, this Chapa, is the same crappy chopper that I've had for a long time. That had it's like a Suzuki from the 80s. It had, I don't know, like an 800cc V-twin shaft drive. And it was cool, but I made it start and run and drove it around one time, popping and spitting and farting. And it just ran like crap. It didn't make any power. It had big, dumb, stupid ape hangers on it. And I decided I would never actually love it. So what I did was I brought it around with me from one state to another state to another state, as I do. And now it has a fuel-injected SV650 650cc V-twin. It's like a super wide V. It's almost an L-twin, like a Ducati thing, but chain drive, so I had to redo the hardtail. Just got a kit and bodged it together. I think it'll be fine. Sport bike rear wheel. The front is still the 80s Suzuki stuff, because the front end on that other bike was destroyed, which is why I got it for essentially no money too. But I brought it home and put a real battery on it and it started right up, so I took all that stuff out. So it runs actually just like this. I'm waiting on cables, honestly. I've been sitting here for 4 months or whatever, just waiting on going up to the city and getting cables made. I have them all pulled out and labeled. How much more I need, how much less I need, clutch, front brake, the fittings I need. Like I just have to get in my truck and drive up there one morning, but I keep not doing it, so there it sits. I was convinced that I was just going to do this in like a weekend. That was like 6 months ago, so you know how that goes. The radiators are like dirt bike radiators off of some Honda CR250, I think. It still has fuel injection, even though that's a regular, like a chopper style Harley gas tank. So it is not set up for fuel injection. So So it just has a regular petcock, and then I took the fuel injection tank out of the Suzuki, and I built this guy out of it, so it has the regular top, just like you'd get in a sport bike. So you flip that thing open, and then all the fittings and stuff and the pumper on the bottom. So I'm gonna have it gravity feed from there down into here, which is essentially, boop, you can't see anything because the trim's in the way maybe, I don't know, bow, high point. So this hose is fuel injection hose. So this one is basically just going to be gravity feed from this petcock down to the tank, pressurizes it from the front here, and then spits it back up to the fuel rail. Starts fine, runs fine, I don't know. This is just regular, the factory airbox wouldn't fit at all, like period, at all. I tried really hard. So instead this is just some diamond plate aluminum that I got from the metal supplier up in the city. Cut it up and just TIG welded it into the shape that it is. It's like some bands and some TIG weld, and has a removable top filter. So the springs are holding it down. It's basically pulling a suction, like a sealing force. And then the filter is actually, when I was changing the air filter on my wife's car, I noticed that the '07 Honda Fit has absolutely the smallest, cheapest air filter you can get. So I got another one when I replaced hers, and they cost $3, and they're everywhere, and it works fine. So it's super serviceable. I was gonna make like a cover for it and stuff. I really don't care. Obviously, I'm not even working on it. So the radiators, they work independently, and then to get it to work, I'm gonna have to, I mean, this ultra trick little bit. So it's two, what is it, like 3/8 aluminum into basically like a 1 1/4 inch aluminum fitting. So I can run just rubber hoses. This thing will live up in here, and then they'll have the regular sized SV650 radiator hose that goes to the factory location, into the factory thermostat, all that. And then I have various and sundry fans, things like that. I'll find one that fits, or that makes enough wind, or makes it fit good enough that I can just plug it in and it doesn't overheat. And if it overheats, I don't know, I'll spend some money. But man, I got a Polaris Predator, like radiator, aluminum, super cool. But I got it and the freaking thing was twice as wide as the motorcycle. So I got it and put it right here, stuck it across here, and it was that freaking wide. It looks so stupid. If I was gonna do that, I'd just get an SV650 one that already fits all the lines and whatever. But the whole reason I didn't use the factory radiator from that bike is it's that wide. So I don't know. Skinny bikes make it hard to hide stuff, I guess. The engine on this is actually really ugly, because the whole point of it was to be totally buried and hidden in the bike, except for this stuff. From here down, you could see it, and you're like, oh yeah, cool, it's a motorcycle, bro. But other than that, it's cool to look at, which is I think what choppers are for. I think it'll probably be crap to ride, but I put a, not quite a pizza wheel, but I put a pretty fat sprocket on it. So it should do burnouts on demand, and hopefully won't go over about 100 miles an hour with the final drive gearing. So that should keep me from, I don't know, from bending it, hopefully, if it ever actually goes under its own power down the road. That's that. I got all the paint and stuff was already done, so it's actually, dude, it kind of sucks. It's a bummer actually, but this is like factory, not factory, but this is professional paint. It's like orange, sparkly, super gloss. Like, it's really pretty freaking good paint. And it's just been sitting, getting covered with dust and schmegma for 5 years. It's all pinstriped up, and like somebody spent a bunch of money on it and then never actually made it go. And then I gave them a little bit of money, not much, and now it has like a sport bike fuel injected engine. So I'm doing the exact same thing with it the last guy was, which is like moving it around my garage, I guess. that is basically what I've been doing. Show you outside real quick before I have to finish what I'm doing, because been kind of a mad dash. This is all Marauder parts and F-150 parts. The chassis that I kept, that body can go to scrap now. So as soon as I get that other truck off of my trailer to put the big block in it, I can take that thing, throw it in the scrap. My Edsel is super, dude, just dead nuts reliable. Super cool. I joined like a little local car club and take the Edsel out every week. Do like a coffee thing on every Saturday or whatever. But, you know, you guys saw it in real life, you get it. But it's a little bit lowered. It's kind of weird, but I like it. Everybody that sees it goes, "Oh wow, is that an Edsel? Oh, I've never seen one of those. What is that?" And the answer is, it's a freaking cartoon car. And runs, drives, push button automatic, has subs. It's super cool. I was gonna bag it, and as soon as I pulled it out of the field, the whole point was just to bag it and make it just drag the bottom off of it. But once I put it together and drove it around the block like sitting on buckets, it's kind of just been running and driving ever since. It never broke down. And so I have a hard time taking it apart since it just kind of keeps working. But Z1000 mufflers, factory mufflers off one of my bikes. Sounds nice. So, big giant floppy car. This is all, like I said, the F-150 and Marauder junk that has to go away. My safety, modular safety blocks. They're not cinder blocks, they're modular safety blocks. And that is my heater for when it's freezing. It's like 20 degrees all the last 2 weeks. And so I was out here in all my thermals, all my insulated everythings, just grinding away at it, trying to get it to a point where I could pop this body, parted out that other chassis and the other body off the F-150. Meeting dudes at the casino and stuff to sell $20 parts. What a hassle. Like doors, fenders, windows. I was just trying to get rid of the junk so I could scrap the truck. And it was just such a pain. But you guys know how that is. Other than that, that's basically my my day in the shop here. And I gotta clean that stuff up so that I can go inside before it rains. And ta-da! I think that's pretty much it. Hasta la vista.